you cannot. You see, these white people today, you know, historians today, they say that, oh, the Greek philosophers, the greatest mind. But then they turn around and say, but they didn't know what they were talking about when they say that, you know, the Egyptians invented mathematics. Right? In other words, how can you have the greatest mind for the flights of logic and philosophy and invention of science and not being able to recognize that your statement that the Egyptians, the origin of the Egyptians is supposedly false? You can't have it both ways, you see that. So it's a great honor to be here and to share some of my thoughts with you, my observations. My book, Not Out of Greece, this is the second edition. Many of you probably read the first edition. It was actually a pamphlet that I put together spuriously in 6-7 days. I was supposed to go to lecture at a university in St. Thomas, and I got a frantic phone call. No, don't come and talk about African spirituality. It's a very Christian place, and they'll put you back in the plane and send you back home right away. So,
put you in jail.
So they said, what about history? I said, well, I'll have to put some document together. So I put together, a book on, I call it Not Out of Greece, not first edition. Some of you may have had that, but this book is far more than that first book. What spawned me to do this was, I've always been interested in our people, and of course the Kemetic perspective, the ancient Egyptian perspective. I've devoted my entire life to that, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. And but I've always was troubled since I was a little boy with the portrayal of the Egyptians as white people. Everywhere you look, Cleopatra and all the the Moses, and the Egyptians were white people, and as a young man growing up, I knew they were African people deep in my heart. And it wasn't until I read, Dr. Ben's book, Black Man of the Nile.
That's right. That's right.
That I began to get some more, food for thought. You see that? And but I went along my way, and and as we go along, we are troubled by these things, and I always told myself, one of these days I'm going to tackle that beast. The portrayal of our people as white people. And then came, the days when, in the late 80s, when ASCAC, began to, portray and defend the African classical civilizations and the attack that came in its wake. You see that? And so I said to myself, well, it is time now to do something. And I just want to read a little passage here, because this was the tipping point. This is what said to me, okay, we have to deal with this here. And it was a book that I picked up in Barnes & Noble, okay? And I looked through the book, and I wouldn't have bought it, save for the fact that I disagreed vehemently with everything I saw in it. And I wanted to use it as a reference for my argument. And it's a book written by Charles Van Doren. It's called A History of Knowledge. Published by Ballantine Books in 1991. Of course, Ballantine's one of our major publishers. This highly acclaimed book was selected by the Book of the Month Club and the History Book Club, and became a national bestseller. That's what made me buy the book, because here's a book that's now going into the minds of millions of Americans. It received rave reviews by the likes of Mortimer J. Adler and professor at the New York University of Southern California, and so on. You see that? Okay. Now, after stating the accomplishment of the civilization that preceded the Greeks in a plural manner, Van Doren opens chapter 2 with a statement that, in quotes, there have been 2 knowledge explosions in human history, not just one. The second began in Europe 4 or 5 centuries ago, and it is still going on. The first began in Greece during the 6th century BC. Explosions in knowledge, meaning what he's saying is that before that and after that, nobody else has the capacity to know. Or the Greek explosion also had a long life. Like ours, it spread quickly and finally affected the entire known world, and so on. It commenced with a new method for acquiring knowledge, continued with advances in mathematics, and culminated in revolutionary theories about matter and force, and so on. Then I go on to say that the subtitle that introduces Pythagoras says, the invention of mathematics, the Pythagoreans. So, you know, that wasn't that big a deal. I have a lot of children. So I went over and looked at their school books at Children College. You know, I have 4 of my children already graduated from universities. So I went through their textbooks on mathematics and science, and I came across similar stories. Now, this is racism.
Yes, it is.
It is racism. You see that? Okay, to dismiss Chinese, African people, the Egyptians, the Mexicans, the American Indians as not knowing, not capable of knowing, and that all knowledge and special knowledge, you know, started with the Greeks and with the Europeans. That's what's being taught to the kids in high school, in universities. And one of the hurting points was that, you know how many those textbooks cost? Like $200? You know how much an education costs per year? $40,000. You understand that? So I'm like, what am I paying for? You follow what I'm saying? It put a whole different spin on the miseducation of the Negro. You see that? Okay? So I said, we have to put a stop to this. Of course, there are a good number of books, not quite enough, okay, attempting to defend our people and things of that nature. And I wanted to write a book that will silence this nonsense once and for all. You see that? Okay? So our first question that I asked myself is, why do they lie like this? And because I knew back then, I had the evidence in different little places here and there already, and I got the evidence from them, because we are not in a position to do the primary research ourselves. We have to get their research, because they're the ones that have, all the means and money and things like that. So as I said, they know the truth. Why did they lie? And I came to the realization that, I'm very imaginative. I'm a musician by education. I was supposed to be a concert pianist and a conductor, orchestral conductor. Okay? I went to Juilliard and Mannes College of Music as a piano major, and I had 3 months more to get my bachelor's. 3 months to get my degree, and I walked out. I couldn't stand the racism. Just walked out. You understand? And I was a student. I would have been a concert pianist if I had stayed, and possibly an orchestral conductor and composer and the whole thing. You see? So I'm very imaginative. So I had this vision of, white people standing up in front of their little kids in grade school, telling them, and children, our lesson today is that, everything that we know was taught to us by black people, by Negroes. Then I understand why they believe they have to lie. Because if they told them the truth, that would be a problem for their children. But then I understand why our children have a problem.
That's right.
Why we have a problem.
That's right.
You see that? Because, you see, we are made to believe that our history begins with slavery.
That's right.
You see that? With slavery. And here I knew that we were the inventors of civilization.
That's right.
Okay? So, but I wanted to settle the score. I just didn't want to write a book, a history book as to who did what when. You see that? And what was done when. I wanted to deal with the ideas that shape history. You see that? And I wanted to deal with it in a certain way, okay, that will put an end to the question once and for all, and to serve as a guide for others to write similar books. And I will share that along as we go along, because we need libraries of books telling the truth. Okay? And you know, I have my son, and then mom, and okay, young man, he's been writing his book too. You know, we bring up a whole dynasty
That's
here.
beautiful.
And his book is, we've been working on it for 4 years now. He's finishing the book every 2 weeks for the past 8 months. Because he wants to make sure that there's no room for counter attacks.
Yes.
Because when you write a book on history defending your
That's right.
people,
Yeah.
they want to
Yes.
do you in.
Yes, they do.
But his book is a genetic proof of the blackness of the ancient Egyptians.
Oh, okay.
You see that?
Mm-hmm.
And he has found the same genetic, you know, ingredients that connect ancient Egypt and the Levant. You follow what I'm saying? The Canaanites and all the people that they call, you know, Hebrews and Greeks or whatever before 1800 BC. You see that? They're all African people. The original substrata of all the people that populated what you call Southern Europe, all the way up to the Black Sea, Syria, and all of that, and you know, Israel and Jordan and India and Southern China, they were all African people. The genetic evidence is there. That was one of the unforeseen effects of the Genome Project.
Right. That's what it was. That's right. Absolutely.
So his book is, you know, a very
Absolutely.
scholarly, you know, study of genetics, brought down into level that the layperson can follow, and settle the question of the blackness of the ancient Egyptians once and for all. Because they say in that program, CSI, Crime Scene Investigation, if your genes were there, you were there. We follow the science.